So we went through the four major roles of glutathione, summarized by the word idea. I stands for the immune system, D for detoxification, which is tonight's topic, E for energy, and A, what most people know about glutathione being the master antioxidant. And the reason why we call it the master antioxidant is that all of the antioxidants known to science, all of them depend on glutathione for their function. Without glutathione, none of our antioxidants can work properly. So let's focus in on tonight's topic, detoxification. Just to go back a bit, when IMMUNOCAL was first discovered a little over 25 years ago, the world population was 4 billion people. 4 billion people. Now it's just about 8 billion people. That's incredible, an astounding doubling in population size of the world in a single generation. We've been on this good earth for a long, long time, but in one generation, we have doubled our population, which is very, very scary, because along with doubling our population has come an exponential rise in pollution and toxins and environmental damage. I mean, there's twice as many people to spew this stuff out and to require industry and manufacturing. And so this has led to some bad situations. According to the World Health Organization, a shocking 90% of all of humanity live in places that exceed safe limits, 90%. And air pollution, get this, air pollution represents the fourth largest threat to human life. More than cancer. Air pollution kills more people than cancer. More than drug abuse. More than automobile accidents. And far more than war. Air pollution kills far more people than war. And how does our body deal with this? We're adaptable creatures, but even Mother Nature has its limits to abuse. We all have built-in mechanisms to attempt to rid ourselves of all of these toxins. Of course, major organs like the liver and the kidneys, they specialize in this area. The liver and the kidneys are what literally cleans crap out of your body. But each and every cell in our body has its own independent detoxification mechanisms. And of course, the main one in your cell is glutathione. Key to all of this is our topic today, glutathione and detoxification. Okay, so let me just change tact a bit. And I'm going to ask you all, what is the most common substance used as an attempt to suicide by overdose? I'm saying in the emergency department, which I worked in for many, many years, of course, we would get people that try to kill themselves by overdose. What do you all think the number one substance was? I'll give you a second to ponder on that. Well, the number one drug actually is alcohol. Most suicide patients, the thing we'll find most commonly on board is alcohol. But the second most is acetaminophen. Acetaminophen. And you all know it by different names: Tylenol, Adasol, paracetamol, Panadol, all kinds of names. Let's just talk about acetaminophen overdose, because it's how I first learned about glutathione. So let's say you've gotten into a fight with your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your husband or your wife or your significant other, and they've really peed you off. And so you start to look at that bottle of Johnny Walker, and you take a couple hits, and you're getting even angrier. And you're pacing around the house. Sorry. And you see this big old bottle of extra strength Tylenol. And you take another hit of the Johnny Walker, and that bottle starts to look more and more attractive. And boom, you find yourself, you snapped off the lid, and you've taken all of that extra strength Tylenol. Now, for those of you that don't know, a bottle of extra strength Tylenol, it will kill most people. It will kill most people. And the way it kills you is that literally your liver falls apart in anywhere between 2 and 5 days. So you've taken this overdose, you pass out, you wake up the next morning with a bloody headache, despite all the Tylenol, and you head over, or someone takes you over to the local emergency department. And you're met by the triage nurse, and the triage nurse says to you, why are you here? And you say, well, I've just taken an overdose. What did you take? I took Tylenol. When did you take it? Well, I took it last night. And the triage nurse says, good. You're wondering, it's a bit of a strange response. So he or she brings you into a cubicle where you're assessed by another nurse who takes your vital signs and looks you over and takes blood tests and asks you again, I see you've taken a Tylenol overdose. When did you take it? And you say, I took it last night. And they go, great. Great. That's strange. And she leaves the cubicle, and you're sitting there. And if you're in Montreal or Toronto, you're sitting there and you're sitting there. Eventually, in comes the medical resident. And the resident has been up all night, and it looks like hell. Clothes are all crumpled, hair is disheveled, unshaven, could be male or female. And they ask you, you took a Tylenol overdose. When exactly did you take it? Sometime last night. And the medical resident says, fantastic. Now you're going, what is with these responses of these medical practitioners? Why are they saying good, great, fantastic? Because I've taken an acetaminophen overdose, a Tylenol overdose. The reason why I would be happy because you took the Tylenol dose last night is because if I can get my hands on you in the first 24, 48 hours, I can save your life. Remember, I told you that a Tylenol overdose, it takes between 2 and 5 days to kill you. If I get my hands on you in 24 hours, I have the opportunity to save your life. And the way I save your life is by giving you a drug that, guess what, raises glutathione levels. And by raising glutathione levels, the liver is able to detoxify itself. So that was my first exposure to glutathione, was learning emergency medicine and how to save somebody from this specific overdose. But we're not just talking about acetaminophen overdoses. When you look at what most doctors don't know and what people are not aware of, is that glutathione is also documented to be responsible for the detoxification of literally hundreds of substances in our environment. And this list grows year by year. I mean, we could fill up many slides. included in that list is the things that appear in the air that we breathe, the food that we eat, the water that we drink. Let's just look at a short list of what we depend on glutathione for their detoxification. Pesticides and herbicides, which we're so dependent on. Of course, we would all love to have organic fruits and vegetables, but that would just not sustain the world's population, especially at 8 billion people. Automobile exhaust, which is a huge issue. A cigarette smoke. Fortunately, cigarette smoking is coming down a bit, but if you are a smoker or you live with a smoker, you need glutathione to detoxify the smoke. Mercury levels, heavy metals, and if you're trying to avoid them, well, it's extremely difficult. Smoked or artificially flavored foods. This looks delicious. I'd love to have some of that, but it's loaded with nitrosamines and other chemicals. Pickled or barbecued or preserved meats, all of these, and especially on a barbecue, you're getting some delicious stuff, but you're also getting a stomach full of carcinogens. Cleaning solutions. Every time you clean your house, you're being exposed to a serious amount of toxins. Toxins are coming out of the carpet. Toxins come out of the paint that we use. Toxins are in the amalgams in our teeth. These are mercury amalgams that the mercury's got to go somewhere, and it goes into your body. I mean, we are surrounded. And we even have a list of new diseases in medical books that are called environmental diseases. Multiple chemical sensitivity is one environmental disease. Sick house syndrome. You can have a whole family sick at the same time and not knowing that it's actually the house that's causing it. Chronic fatigue syndrome has been linked to chemical exposures, and many, many more. And by no coincidence, the highest levels of glutathione to be found in your body is in your liver, which is essentially your major organ of detoxification. Makes perfect sense. Fortunately, glutathione detoxifies all of these substances in a number of different ways. We can get into things like the different phases of liver detoxification that glutathione is involved in, but that would be probably beyond the scope of this lecture. But I show you this slide just to let you know there are many phases of the detoxification, and glutathione is involved in all of them. And if anybody is interested in diving into this topic, I welcome you to read my latest book on glutathione. The whole section of the book covers detoxification. So to simplify, glutathione can detoxify by neutralizing free radicals. This is one of the common ways that poisons work. Damage from the sun, radiation from the sun, free radicals. Environmental toxins, free radicals. Poor nutrition, buildup of free radicals. Stress will build up free radicals, and these free radicals cause damage to the cell. And it's, of course, glutathione that soaks up these free radicals and detoxifies the cell in that sense. Another way that glutathione works is by making these toxins more water soluble, so they can be easily eliminated by the kidneys or by the digestive tract. A third possible way is by actually having glutathione bind to a toxin and carry it out of the body. This is what we call chelation. And this is especially important for heavy metal cleansing. And here you see just a short list of heavy metals that are detoxified by glutathione, everything from arsenic to mercury to lead, and on and on. And if you look at the research, there are got to be 100,000 articles on how glutathione is involved in detoxification. Here is just one article looking at glutathione transferases. This is a glutathione enzyme that sometimes people have abnormal enzymes. And this was shown to make people, even young people, in their early life, susceptible to lung disease. Here's another article looking at measuring the same glutathione enzyme in clinical practice when we're looking at environmental pollution. And of course, this would be a good indicator of what levels of pollution there are in the environment, because we need these glutathione enzymes to detoxify. Here is an article that links pollution to lowered glutathione levels in red blood cells of children with autism. So autistic kids have a deficiency in glutathione and hence have a deficiency in detoxification. Here's an article called "How Do Glutathione Antioxidant Enzymes and Total Antioxidant Status Respond to Air Pollution Exposure?" And the answer is poorly. Being exposed to air pollution or other forms of pollution will eventually deplete glutathione. Here's an interesting article looking at men who work at gas filling stations. And these filling stations, the gas that they're breathing in lowers glutathione levels, and the gentlemen that have low glutathione transferase enzymes, believe it or not, end up with lower testosterone, and strangely enough, their children are more likely to be girls rather than boys because of this alteration in glutathione levels from the pollution they're exposed to. And it goes on and on. We talk about glutathione in cigarette smoke. We're looking at time lost from school by school kids because of pollution and a deficiency in these glutathione enzymes. I mean, these are all another reason to use IMMUNOCAL. Sure, you say, look, I'm healthy, I'm in good shape. Well, you can't get away from environmental pollution these days. Even if you're in the middle of the ocean, you're going to be surrounded by pollution. If it's not in the water, it's in the air. So has IMMUNOCAL done any detox studies? Well, of course, you know, the answer is yes. Let's get into one area that we looked at. Here I'm blatantly showing you some pictures of me as a hockey coach, a pretty successful one. I loved coaching hockey when my son was of that age. Here we see a championship he won when he was like 9 or 10 years old. Really great kids, easy to take care of. Here they are when they're 14, not so easy to take care of, a little bit more rowdy. And this was the last season that I coached. This team was completely out of control. And so I retired from my hockey career. So why am I talking about hockey? Many of these kids brought to the game and had behind the bench these inhalers, these puffers. And many of you recognize them. They're used for lung problems, most typically asthma. And seeing a dad giving his kid, in this case, Ventolin, an asthma medication during a hockey game was not unusual. And in fact, when you look at hockey players in general, there seems to be a very high proportion of hockey players that suffer from exercise-induced asthma. Now, why hockey players? I mean, more than baseball players, more than football players, more than soccer players. Why hockey players. As it turns out, between each period of hockey, there's a machine that comes out. Unfortunately, these are now becoming electric. But back a few years ago, these ran on fossil fuels. So every hour, you'd be in an enclosed arena with a fossil fuel spewing machine cleaning the ice. This was like not as bad as putting your lips to the tailpipe of a car, but you get the idea. The entire arena suffered from pollution hourly. So we decided to look at this. We went to a university and we looked at their hockey team, which had a high incidence of this exercise-induced bronchoconstriction, which is an asthma that you get from working out. And we used a cysteine donor, which of course was IMMUNOCAL. So here's this team with a lot of players that had exercise-induced asthma. 18, in fact. They were about 25 years old, a little on the big side. It was it was a gold standard study, double-blind, placebo-controlled, IMMUNOCAL versus a placebo. And it took place over 8 weeks. And when we looked at a lung function test called an FEV1, a forced expiratory volume, we see at day one, they were retaining a lot in their lungs because asthma is an obstructive disease. At week 4, improvement. And after 2 months, a statistically significant major changes in their pulmonary function just using IMMUNOCAL supplementation. So this was both an asthma study, but really what it was a toxicology study. I mean, many of our cities will look like this several times a year, if not all year long. Along with air pollution comes an increased incidence in asthma and also all other lung diseases are associated with air pollution. Here we see some typical stats of the most polluted cities, major cities in the world, but even here in Montreal and in Toronto and in New York in the last couple of weeks, with all the forest fires here in Quebec, both Montreal and New York and Toronto, we all had our days where we had the highest levels of pollution in the world. Montreal was the most polluted city in the world. Okay. And when we look at this pollution again, this is a graph or a chart showing you lost life expectancy across the world. In other words, how many years a person lives less. We're talking about every country here due to different problems, and we see that air pollution is the #1 reason for lost life expectancy, more than smoking, more than alcohol and drugs, more than AIDS, more than malaria. So this is very, very frightening. So what are we supposed to do? I mean, is this the way you want to get your kid dressed up before he goes out to take a bike ride? Is this what you want to do when you are getting ready to take a run? Is this the way you want to play soccer? Or you may not be obvious to you, but here's this guy over here. So what is the answer other than lowering pollution, which good luck with that. Wearing a gas mask. What is another answer? And clearly the answer is raise your glutathione levels. Raise your glutathione levels. And I like to tell people that glutathione, next to water, is the most important detoxification substance you have in your body. So thank you very much for your attention. And of course, you want to learn more about glutathione, feel free to go on Amazon and pick up my book. I also have a Facebook page where I'm posting new articles all the time. There's a YouTube channel where this webinar, as well as many others, are going to be posted. And so let's open up the floor.
Dr. Gutman.